Mark C. Hopson holds a PhD in intercultural communication with a secondary emphasis on traditions and African American rhetoric from Ohio University, an MA and BA degrees in organizational communication from Western Michigan University. His main areas of interest include intercultural organizing, African American rhetorical traditions, the rhetoric of race, culture, and gender, and the communication of violence prevention education. As co-founder of the HPC Leadership Institute, Dr. Hopson has facilitated violence prevention education seminars targeting relationship abuse, sexual assault, and harassment prevention for more than 4,500 participants. Dr. Hopson actively promotes ways in which communication research may contribute to the health and well-being of society. So please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Dr. Mark C. Hopson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Lennon. So our topic today is civility. And it's a pretty open-ended topic. So what I want to do is give you my take on it, maybe share a little bit about the topic in terms of what I study and what I do professionally, and then at some point perhaps get some input from you if you are all willing to do so. All right? So when I think about civility, I think about a few things. Obviously I think about good manners, right? Good etiquette. That's one of the first things that comes to mind when I think about civility. But today I think about it within the context of the times. In other words, what's going on today. So I'm thinking about civility in terms of Black History Month. I'm thinking about civility in terms of Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. I'm thinking about it in terms of the Second Amendment and discussion around that issue. I'm thinking about it in terms of global and economic communities. So I begin with a short definition / conceptualization of civility. And obviously societies are founded in general principles of civility. Common understandings include the genteel, polite, and kind actions that you all practice here today. But I think that being polite is only a small part of civility when it comes to societal responsibility. It's one step toward building a healthy society, but it's not the only step. Having good manners is one thing, but to have an interest and understanding in the lives of other societal members moves us beyond a surface level to a more responsible and deeper level of civility. There's a married couple of professors who work at the University of Colorado, and they assert that true civility is not merely saying please or thank you, nor is it a roll over and play dead mentality. Indeed, civility requires risk. It can be uncomfortable. It can even be dangerous. The visionary Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. took a position on civility when he said no to segregation, when he said no to violence, when he said no to poverty, and no to social oppression. Other professors like Dr. Jill Jacobson of an institution in Canada adds to her syllabus a clause which prohibits and describes incivility. Dr. Jacobson says that discriminatory, rude, threatening, harassing, disruptive, distracting, and inappropriate behavior and intolerable language, regardless of the context in which such actions occur, will not be tolerated, whether in person, in email, online, in peer reviews, etc. Certainly this professor understands that achieving civility requires us to define the concept. Incivility is a form of violence after all, and violence is both physical and mental. Now, physical violence includes hitting, kicking, and otherwise dangerous forces. It might also include gun violence and bullying, things that tend to hinder society. Now, mental violence, or verbal or psychological or emotional violence, also hinders society. And these include the oppressive and abusive words and gestures and stereotypes and erroneous assumptions that devalue other human beings. So all that being said, the question is, how do we teach civility? We know that Mason's Civility Project aims to promote core values and civil interactions in diverse communities and initiate dialogue across campus on civility. We know that civility includes free speech and free ideas and movement and creativity and flexibility and determination for a better tomorrow. Well, how does one achieve these ideas? How does one allow others to achieve them? To answer these questions and to offer some guidance, I borrow from an expert in anti-racist dialogue. Professor Marty is a rhetorician who argues that language can change ideas, and ideas change action. This addresses the mental and the physical violence that we discussed earlier. Professor Marty addresses the complexities of intercultural and interracial communication by imploring us to enact 6 steps to create a safer and healthier intercultural interactions. May I turn off this microphone? There's 2 of them. Is this one working?
It should be on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good to go? All right. So, Dr. Marty gives us 6 steps towards creating an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, freer society. And civility is also a part of freedom. So Professor Marty says that we should employ self-reflection to recognize the benefit and the detriment of power and privilege. The key word there is self-reflection. As an instructor, I ask myself after each class, what did I do today to promote a safe and healthy classroom? What did I say? What opportunities did I make available to students to allow them to contribute to the classroom? And sometimes these questions occur well into the night. Oftentimes I know if I've made a mistake and I'm able to rectify that mistake by next class. So self-reflection is the ability to analyze your participation in any given situation. In other words, it requires you to ask yourself, how does my interaction help or hinder civility for myself and others? How do I contribute to or hinder overall freedom? You know, sometimes we can be too nice in our interactions, which in turn hinder civility. For example, do you deny your culture in your GMU classrooms? Do you minimize your own value within your environment? How about this? Do you change your name as an international student to make it easier for students of United States or American descent to pronounce? And how does that help those students learn more about the world around them if you are changing yourself or acculturating yourself in order to appease them? Isn't one of the reasons why we came to Mason is for its diversity? So when we change ourselves and we change our names to accommodate other human beings, what are we robbing them of? And how are we contributing to civility in that way? Why would you deny another person an opportunity to learn about you and your culture? So being self-reflective does not require us to change our values and beliefs, but it certainly requires us to think about these beliefs and values and to take responsibility and ownership on a daily basis. So when you leave here today, you should be able to ask yourselves, what have I contributed? Did I speak enough? Did I offer something? Did I accept new knowledge? And asking these questions will strengthen your ability to interact more responsibly and in the moment. Marty says, number 2, re-envision the surrounding world from other perspectives and recognize other cultures as lending to that world. So the key word there is to re-envision the world. Now I recall as an undergraduate student, I rarely spoke in class. I was oftentimes one of a few African Americans in class, and many times the only African American in class. And I'm not going to say that's the only reason I didn't speak, but I think it contributed to my silence. For some reason, I didn't see myself as being valuable or able to contribute to the conversation. I realize now that that's probably why I teetered around a 2-point something or other in GPA. Because when I got to graduate school, I made myself a promise. I said, I'm going to speak regardless. Every class, I'm going to say something. I don't care how they evaluate it. I don't care what they think about it. I'm going to contribute to our discussion, and I forced myself to do it every class. And so I went from that 2-point something to almost a 4.0 as a graduate student. So in other words, I got over my fear. I learned to contribute in a way that was healthy not only for me, but for others as well. Now, civility requires that we recognize multiple standpoints. We may not always agree or even accept those standpoints, but it's important to at least recognize other standpoints. Certainly, emerging into a multicultural society will introduce us to multiple views, but ethnocentric attitudes can prevent us from recognizing and learning from these views. And opportunities for new insight exist right here at Mason. For example, throughout the month of March, Mason's Civility Project will educate students through very focused efforts, including the upcoming Inclusive Leadership Seminar on Civility and Diversity in the Mason community. There will also be a Pizza and Perspectives activity, which will highlight discourse in American politics and working across party lines. And there's also a project called Bullying, or the Bullying Project, which looks at dimensions of violence. So all of these are opportunities for you to see the world from another perspective. All of these are opportunities for you to learn. Surely our meeting here today is an opportunity for you to learn. And you yourself may engage others in order to teach them about your culture, your value, and your truth. But this will require you to step outside your comfort zone and to speak out. So during this afternoon's breakout session, you need to be bold in telling your story. Be unapologetic in your truth. Make this day meaningful for yourself and for others. That's what civility is all about. Number 3, Marty suggests that civility requires your willingness to contribute to intercultural and interracial interaction. Again, your willingness to contribute. Key words here. Admittedly, sometimes it's safe to hang out with people who look like you and be around people who share your values, cultures, and beliefs. Have you ever noticed that the Johnson Center is full of many different people, but yet many of the crowds and the tables consist of people who look alike and think alike? The African American students sit together, European American students sit together, Malay students, Chinese students, etc., and so on. Surely such a diverse group of people can learn from one another. So here I'm reminded of a very special person. You might know her. Her name is Ayano Ibata. I hope Ayano doesn't mind me sharing. I first met Ayano in an undergraduate intercultural communication class. She was very quiet, hardly said a word. She was a great student and she did well, but she spoke very little. And as the semester ended, I thought, well, we haven't made much of a connection. However, after that semester, Ayano stayed in touch with me. And we would talk about graduate school, possible internships, and her growing interest in the U.S. civil rights movement. She would ask me questions about U.S. slavery and John Brown and the Civil War and MLK, and even hip-hop music. In essence, Ayano had stepped outside her comfort zone to contribute to an intercultural interaction. This interaction led us to more conversation and even working together on her master's project. She and I are now looking at the intercultural experiences of Mason students to better understand how those experiences contribute to their communication skills. It's a very interesting project. And to be honest, Ayano is one of the main reasons why I'm here with you today. She actually helped to initiate my being here. So she was willing to contribute to an interaction that she could have let go very easily. And who knows where we would be right now. Number 4, Marty would suggest that beyond the willingness to engage in these relationships, we also need to care about these relationships. Sincere care is very important here. And it requires us to move beyond what we might consider to be rational judgment. I mean, how many of us have the time and the energy to really invest in relationships here at the institution that may or may not last after the semester is over? We have work, we have family, we have school, and we're taxed for time. This is true. But Mahatma Gandhi taught Martin Luther King an important lesson about this thing called agape love. Now, agape love isn't physical, it isn't sexual, it's not even really emotional. It's a spiritual love. It's love for the sake of loving other human beings. And when you give agape love, you don't expect it in return. But when it's given, it makes it that much more meaningful. And isn't receiving love enough? Isn't it enough of a reward for our interactions? Number 5, Marty would suggest that we reject privilege at the detriment of others. So Marty is essentially saying that you need to check yourself about the privileges you enjoy, because sometimes the privileges you enjoy can oppress others. Now, privilege is a funny thing, not in a humorous way, but in the sense that it's difficult to pay. It's difficult to put your finger on it. But we all enjoy some aspect of privilege just because we're here today. Being in a college atmosphere is a privilege. Some of you have family members who have not gotten this far. Some of us know friends who didn't make it to college. So we are privileged in that way. Keep in mind, privilege sometimes refers to the work that we do in order to earn that privilege, but oftentimes privilege is afforded by social identity. Privilege is often an unearned advantage. And social identities include gender, race, class, religion, ability/disability, sexual identity. And you ask yourselves, well, how are people privileged by those social identities? So I want you to think for a minute and respond to this question or this statement in your head. You don't have to share it with everybody, but if you respond yes, you might be enjoying some type of privilege. So here we go. There is rarely a time when appearing strong or domineering has worked against me. There is rarely a time when appearing strong or domineering has worked against me. Can we all say yes to that? How about this one? After leaving a late night class, I can walk to my car with little to no fear or cause for concern. After leaving a late night class, I can walk to my car with little to no fear or cause for concern. How about this? If I should choose to remain single all my life, I am just as likely to be respected as I am criticized. If I should choose to remain single all my life, I am just as likely to be respected as I am criticized. Those are privileges. What do you think, which social identity do you think those refer to?
Gender.
Somebody said gender. You think? So if a woman decides to stay single all her life, she's less likely to be respected than a man who might choose to stay single? Men who stay single are known as what? Players. Masters. Do we say the same thing about women if they decide to stay single at 70? Old maid, somebody said. So there are privileges afforded to social identity. How about this? I am comfortable sharing my spiritual beliefs in most situations. I am comfortable sharing my spiritual beliefs in most situations. Or this one. Within most U.S. institutions, our religion is understood and appreciated. Within most U.S. institutions, my religion is understood and appreciated. Or this. Seldom do I hear stereotypes about my religion. Seldom do I hear stereotypes about my religion. Which social identity do you think that speaks to? Somebody said Christianity, but religion as a whole, right? Do you think everybody can share their spiritual beliefs without fear of critique? Are there some here who don't feel as comfortable sharing their religious beliefs in their classrooms? Do you hear stereotypes about your religion? Do you hear stereotypes about the way in which you practice your religion? Certainly there is privilege afforded to religion based upon the context. Can I give you a couple more? All right. How about this? When I'm told about our national heritage and about civilization, I am shown that people of my color made it what it is. When I am told about our national heritage and about civilization, I am shown that people of my color made it what it is. How about this? I will not have to educate my children to be aware of systemic racism for their own daily physical protection. I will not have to educate my children to be aware of systemic racism for their own daily physical protection. How about this? If a traffic cop pulls me over, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. If a traffic cop pulls me over, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. Which social identity am I referring to? Race, perhaps? You think everybody enjoys the same privileges in terms of race? You think some people might feel the need to educate their children or the youngsters in the family about racism and what they have to do in order to deal with it? And are there others who may not need to do so? May not need to do such a practice? All right. What about this one? I am comfortable discussing my partner or my family life at work or at school. I am comfortable discussing my partner or my family life at work or at school. How about this? I can hold hands or show PDA. You know what PDA is? What's PDA? Public display of affection. I can hold hands and show PDA without fearing stares, comments, or otherwise potential harm. Think everybody can say yes to that? Certainly that's a privilege, because there's such a thing as a denied privilege. Some of us don't enjoy the same privileges. How about this? I can marry legally in the state of Virginia. Privilege? Is marriage a privilege? Some say no. I suppose it could be. And that's in regard to which social identity? Sexual orientation. As well as race? Wow. Interesting. How about this? I can access most public places, including restrooms, restaurants, and apartment complexes. I can access most public places, including restrooms, restaurants, and apartment complexes. Or this one. I am not dependent on aid of any kind, including hearing, visual, mobile, etc. I am not dependent on aid of any kind, including hearing, visual, mobile, etc. Through social identity. Ability/disability. So do you understand how civility is based in awareness? Because we oftentimes act according to what we know. I call it consciousness. You can't be unconscious. You can be disconscious, meaning you can go through life unaware of what people are dealing with, thinking that you're doing all you can, when in reality, you are unconscious because you haven't stretched yourself to understand the lived experiences of other people. One more, social identity. I know how to survive without a checking account or banking account. I know how to survive without a checking account or a banking account. Second, I know how to get by without electricity or running water. privileges. They might be seen as denied privileges, but there's certainly experiences that matter. So some of us have probably said, no, I couldn't get along without electricity, I couldn't get along without water. Unfortunately, the truth is somebody in this room is likely to have had that experience. And we don't often share these experiences without being prompted. But it's good for other folks in the room to at least be aware of the fact that lived experiences include these instances. So privilege is gender, race, it's language, it's religion, it's sexual identity, it's disability, it's things that we generally can't control or have no say over. But we can check ourselves to better understand how social identity limits growth for ourselves and for others. So Marty's last point is this, that we move from admission of power and privilege to taking action against oppression, right? I'm just going to use one word there, action. Take action. I'm not here to tell you what action to take. I'm not going to lead you in any direction. I'm simply saying, learn as much as you can and act. Become conscious and act. So I'm urging you to move from being sensitive to being responsible in terms of civility. Be accountable for your small piece of the world, whether it's with family, at school, at work, or even at this session. Take some responsibility. Be active. In other words, act to make this world a better place. We all know that injustices occur, large and small, but Marty's points makes us more aware of how being constructive marginals can help us to change this world with knowledge. So as an instructor, I try to stand for something in the classroom, in the meeting room, town hall meetings, wherever I go. This is why I appreciate our new president. He seems like the type of person who wants to grow a global community here at Mason. And that allows for an invitation to occur, to exist, for students of all backgrounds to make contributions. So move, act, take ownership, be responsible. I challenge you all to do something to make this world a better place. And as you all meet today, take into account the words of President Obama, spoken to an Arizona audience in 2011. He stated, "Let each of us do so with a good dose of humility. Rather than pointing fingers or assigning blame, let's use this occasion to expand our moral imaginations, to listen to each other more carefully, to sharpen our instincts for empathy, and to remind ourselves of all the ways that our hopes and dreams are bound together." As you all meet today, I want you to remember those words. As a side note, in terms of civility, I am reminded that sometimes the babies have more answers than the adults. And so several years ago, I was working with a group of third graders. And I asked a particular third grader to help me define diversity, because I wanted to share with the older students, the college kids, what it means to have true diversity. Because sometimes college kids think that difference means diversity, but difference means diverse. Diversity is responsibility. You can have a bunch of different people in a room and be just as diverse as you want. But if you're not taking into account the responsibility for how difference matters, you are not achieving diversity. You're simply diverse. And people are walking around living and breathing experiences that they can't share with you, or you're using privilege in a way that denies them privilege without even knowing. So I asked the third grader, help me understand how to describe diversity. And the third grader says, you know, diversity is kind of like a flower, many flowers, a field of flowers. So the baby says to me, we should come up with a poem or a song that helps people to remember this field of flowers. And this is what we came up with. Flowers. All colors of flowers grow in a field. Sunshine will bathe them so they may grow well. God will nurture each and every one, so butterflies can enjoy them in summer fun. Showers and breezes touch life after life, and one without the other wouldn't be as nice. Each one lending to another's beauty, each one bending to help spread unity. All happy, just like they should be. We should treasure diversity, now shouldn't we? So with that, I bid you a farewell, and I hope that you take this day and do something to make the world a better place. Thank you.